Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, GitLab. This is the 12.2 retrospective summary. My name is Christopher Leffoltz, and I am the current victim for running this retrospective summary. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with, for those interested in the document, please look at the agenda. If you don't have the agenda handy, I'll post it in the chat window so you have that available as well. We'll go ahead and get started with previous retrospective improvement tasks and updates around that. So Craig Gomes put in that he has an action item from the previous ones, basically increase the number of DB reviewers and maintainers. And as of today, we're at 7 members who have now started to be in the DB maintainer trainee program. So thanks to all who volunteered and have done that before. That's an increase of 4 people since the last retrospective. So that's a very encouraging sign as we get more DB maintainers in place. And Mac, do you want to talk to your next 2 action items?
Sure, happy to. So yeah, one of the achievements that we had in TOLA 2 is we transitioned the whole team to use group and stage labels and deprecated the legacy team labels. And for review apps, we made a number of improvements. We haven't hit 90% success rate yet, but we did hit 100% for a few days, and we do have forward-looking plans to make this even better in the future, and also some periscope charts to visualize the status. On to James for fulfillment. Oh, he's not here.
Yeah, James is not here. I'll go ahead and cover this one as well. Basically, we had an action item for basically making easier to set up a customer portal app. Basically, that was problematic at the last retro. And essentially, we have an issue open on that 573. That issue hasn't been completed, but we improved our process overall with the subsequent issue 394. Which is on the customer. I guess it's an earlier issue based on the way it's labeled, but basically we completed that one. So you could think of it as a subset of that and making progress there associated with it. Cool. We will move on to what went well this month. Just FYI for those who are new to the retro, I essentially cover highlights in the what went well section, as well as what went wrong, and then we go person by person through how we can improve for the last section, and then I'll summarize for improvements for the next release. So went well this month. Definitely have seen a lot of good comments around collaboration. This looks like, if you read through there, what you'll see is a lot of new folks basically being helped by folks who have been at the company for a longer period of time. Also some great pointed feedback along the way from folks who were thinking about problems deeply. So that was very encouraging from that perspective. And it seemed like overall it was a lot of helping each other to make sure that we were all successful around that. So seeing good collaboration there. In the results section, we shipped an MVC of our DAG. Basically, that's a huge accomplishment in and of itself. What's a particular note is that it was done very incrementally in regards to 12 MRs associated with that. So that was very encouraging to see us be super incremental there. There's another one that's also incremental as well. Basically talking later on, Jean talks about it with his team around breaking things up into smaller issues. The quality, let's see here, quality clear steps to improve CE pipeline. Yes, so we now have clear steps to improve our CE pipeline, so that should overall help us to improve how we execute, particularly around those aspects. So it's great to see that we've defined those steps associated with it. And then the last one to call out is the GraphQL. It's starting to prove its value basically on the create knowledge team. So that's very encouraging to see that success related to it from that perspective as well. Onto the transparency section. Basically, this is a great observation of how our transparency value has really kind of shown a number of places. The places I saw it was basically in a couple places. One, everybody was informed on the team itself, but then also in communicating with customers and also talking about issues where customers may want to, in fact, know what's going on, it was extremely valuable as well. So that was a very encouraging aspect to the fact that we use transparency as one of our values, and it's actually helping to make us communicate more effectively associated with it. You notice I don't move very quickly. Part of the reason why is covering a lot of retros in a single 25-minute segment it takes a lot of time, or can take a lot of time. The other thing is we also tend to focus on the things that we want to improve on more than we do the things we do well. So just FYI on that. That's not to say that we don't do things well. It's to say that we just like to make where our focus be the most impactful. Cool. So in the planning section for what went wrong this month, general theme here was some basic estimation and coordination problems or challenges that we had around this area. Essentially, a couple teams noticed a theme where they thought they had a good idea of what an issue size was, and it turned out to be a little larger than they originally anticipated. So because of that's been a challenge. The other one is just some coordination challenges, particularly in the create knowledge side being observed. In the access section, this is something that we focused on a couple months ago. It looks like we're going to have to focus on it again. We had onboarding as an issue where new folks getting on board were having issues getting access requests. This appears to be in other areas beyond that, where like example is GCP access, and also just a few other specialized access points that we need to do. So we'll try to dig in there and understand better how we can improve that developer experience associated with that. And then the last section where we had a theme was basically in results. In particular, the maintainer roulette accounts for what the current status is, doesn't necessarily anticipate the status for maintainers. So that led to some delays associated with it, just based on the fact that people going on vacation associated with it. By the way, I did a survey of the development organizations. I think we're between 85 and 90% availability for the month of August, just FYI. That's basically saying that roughly we took about 10% vacation time in the month of August, which, it's a normal month for us to have a lot of vacation. So that's definitely impacting us as well from that perspective. And then there's also some confusion on the release process of when to pick into an auto deploy and when it can be used associated with that, which we have below, I believe, in the areas to improve, which is quickly where we'll move to next associated with that. And we can go ahead and hit that section for how we can improve. And this is where I hand it off to folks for them to talk. Matt, are you available to talk about tooling?
Yeah. So I'm Matt Knorr for the representing the monitor team. And the one area that goes along with what Christopher was just talking about was on kind of the pace that we auto deploy to GitLab.com, and to figure out the core issue is understanding when our changes have been deployed, and being able to verify everything there. So there is an issue open that could at least surface what is currently deployed. So that's what that link to that issue is. But yeah, I think the thing that we're going to try to improve going forward is better understanding the process for the auto deploy, the pace of it, and then understanding kind of where our changes are in the pipeline.
Cool. One other feature that is also coming is for a given MR, you will be able to tell when it actually is deployed. So that's basically it'll update the MR to reflect that it has been deployed. So that's another way of getting information on it. It doesn't necessarily predict when it's going to get deployed, but it at least gives you information relative to it. So that's encouraging. Cool. Ken, are you available to talk about secure and the monitoring aspects?
Yes. I think it was more like a general suggestion, but I just suggested for our team. So like for me, it would be nice to have like if you have we have some observability tools in GitLab, and if you could make a use of these tools in a team level, we would be more proactive if there is an issue. Like for instance, if you had like some dashboards or like some alarms set, and if they could notify the team in a team specific code, we could just jump on issues quickly. Like as an example, like, we created a dashboard, we'll say, for a team specific endpoint. And if that dashboard starts to throw some errors, or like there is a big latency to that dashboard, it will alert the team. And since they have the contextual information, they could just be more proactive and fix the issue. It's the same for staging. If we could set those alarms for staging environment, we can just detect those problems before it becomes a big production problem.
Excellent suggestion. So have an item below to basically the general attack of the idea. We'll have to figure out which specific ones that we want to go after, say in the next month, to show some incremental progress. One of the things to note is that if it turns out that we're actually using our product in dog fooding, we should also note that as well, depending on which particular pieces of monitoring we're basically looking at, whether it be general tooling versus something specific that we would want to dog food from that perspective.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Andy, are you available to talk about yours?
This came out of the most recent milestone where we had some planning that kind of put UX up against the deadline, as well as we had some dependent issues that we wanted to plan in advance of those UX issues getting done. As well as trying our best not to be still defining the experience throughout the milestone. Hopefully have that experience defined prior to that milestone beginning. So we've worked in that linked issue to address some of those issues.
Thanks, Andy. Cool that you got an issue open. We can definitely track that if you'd like. Just add the retrospective label, and we can keep an eye on it from that perspective. Cool. Elliot Rushton is not here from Verify. I'll read it. When urgent unplanned changes appear, we should hop on sync call to speed up catching up to speed with everything. So this is kind of a reflection of the fact that sometimes you do need to synchronize coordination. We want to move async as much as possible, but when there's unplanned changes, oftentimes it's beneficial, or best action is just to take a synchronous approach that's basically syncing up from that perspective. So that's just a thing that their team will be attempting to do here. And then Luke, are you available to talk about the next one?
I'll be speaking for Luke.
Okay, thanks, Darva.
Sure. So for planning, he said to currently he recommends to plan for the scenario that is not ideal. He did not plan for that. He planned for the ideal scenario when flipping a feature flag from disabled to enabled by default. And so in the future, he thinks that we should expect a little bit more time when enabling features that were disabled by default. And I will be making an update to the handbook to reflect that. And the next item is also hours for Create Knowledge. So I've been observing that there are communications issues between backend and front end when there's a significant time difference. And typically when I see that, I recommend going asynchronous in a Google Doc. And I'm going to be putting together a template for people to use. It's optional on the team if they want to have an idea of the questions they should ask or what they should discuss at the beginning of a milestone. I've noticed, depending on how comfortable you are with working remotely, some people already have calls scheduled with their counterparts and a plan, but for those who are new or not sure how to handle it, I was just going to offer some guidance, and I'll make some updates to the handbook about that as well. And test coverage, Meg.
Thank you. So yeah, I wanted to call this out. This is a big push from quality. So as we evolve, enterprise customers have enterprise level expectations from us. So like, in addition to unit and integration tests, it's crucial that we need to test and even retest end-to-end scenarios from a point of a user. So quality is making a huge push for this in Q3. We are aiming to have all enterprise features covered by either integration or end-to-end tests. Obviously, that needs to be broken down, pruned, and groomed, so it's running at the most performant and we don't have duplicate tests. But I just want to socialize it and make sure that this is like make it visible. This is an improvement effort that we're trying to make long term. In the future, once this is done, we also want to look into how development teams can co-own these test suites going forward, and then have them be, again, an early warning sign where your test is failing. You should know of it before it hits staging and production. Moving on to community contributions. So yeah, we identified some MRs that have fallen on the wayside, and part of it's because that we don't have triage and grooming automation in other satellite projects. And what I mean by satellite projects are the ones that are not CEE. So we've enabled some of these rules for Gitly, Runner, and GitLab pages going forward. But I think going forward, we need to put some more effort into coaching this community contributions MR as well. And with that, I'll invite everybody to look into the issue. We're discussing path forward with Ray Peg there as well. I'll give it back to Christopher. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so improvements for the next release. These are the 4 that jumped out at me as wanting to track at a high level, though I'm open to suggestions or additional ones that we want to. In particular, the ones that I felt like we should definitely make sure we see some progress on in the next month is tooling, basically around basically being able to see MRs being deployed. My understanding is it's going to get done in the next week, so that's a easy one from that perspective to see improvements. Darva's points about communication and the feature flags, getting that updated in the handbook to represent best practices, and also to represent making sure to not always plan for optimal case, plan for more of a common case, maybe a better planning scenario from that perspective. And then Mike's comments around basically improving the discoverability and coaching on community contributions. Basically that issue looked like a big one because we value our community contributions, want to make sure we respond and are there quickly on them. And then better use of monitoring tools for the secure team. I felt like one, as I think Todd, you may have opened this, or Olivier opened this. Essentially, we may need to narrow down scope there because it is pretty broad right now. So focusing on the 1 or 2 things that we could improve on would definitely be an improvement from that perspective. Cool. Are there ones that I missed that folks think should also be included from a high-level tracking perspective? All right. Are there questions or sections of folks that I missed that folks would like to highlight from the document? All right. Well, thanks everybody for a great retrospective. This is a lot of good data, a lot of good feedback. I really appreciate it. I encourage everybody to continue to do that. Love seeing the follow-up on the action items as well, so that we're seeing continuous improvement. Really appreciate everybody's hard work, and everybody have a great day or evening or night. Thanks, everybody.